Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I have a weird background here. I am at the Senior Living Executive Conference here in Nashville, and we got started a tiny bit late because I had technical problems. Tried to log on. Anyway, you don't care about that. Today, my guest is Jon Landers, and he is with iGuard. He's got some really interesting technology. Normally we'd run our intro, but I'm doing this without Jada because she's working on another project and I'm not smart enough to know how to do that. So Jon, welcome to Tech Tuesday. Let's talk a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, Steve, thanks for inviting me. So wear several hats. I'm one of the co-founders of iGuard Home, which made iGuard Stove and now the new iGuard. And I'm also their chief marketing officer. So I wear different hats, if you will.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about what you do. Well, I want to, and what I'm at when I ask that, I want to ask that question a little more clarity. What's the big problem you solve?
The big problem we solve is forgotten cooking fire. There's over 7,920,000 cooking fires a year. That means one's going off about every 4 seconds. And over a third of those are caused by forgotten cooking. Others are caused by electrical problems in the kitchen and all. But the most of the other ones, the highest single, is forgotten cooking. And that's what we solve for. We use, instead of having to wait for a fire to start, we predict and prevent that from happening by watching when somebody's in the kitchen. And as long as they're around the stove when they've turned it on, they have uninterrupted cooking. But if they leave the kitchen area, our device, the iGuard, senses that there's no presence in the room, and it will shut off power to the stove until they come back. Then that prevents a forgotten cooking fire because it only is going when they're present, which means it's not forgotten. So that's the premise of our product. Our first one, the iGuard stove, we've been in business now 10 years. And that one, we've had over 1 million auto shutoffs reported without a single kitchen fire reported. So we're proud of that. But 10 years ago, for that technology is pretty much horse and buggy. And so what we wanted to do and why they brought me on was to update the product to make it new and more powerful and have a broader reach. So what we did is the new iGuard, instead of a motion sensor, we went to millimeter radar, which not only detects movement, but it also will detect density. So it knows if it's a person versus just maybe a cat walking through the kitchen, or that you put a large vase with flowers behind you on the center island. So it's much more, it's got a wider cone, so it covers the kitchen. You're not locked to the stove. You can walk around the kitchen and it knows that you're there. But if you totally leave the room, that's when it's going to shut off power to the stove. And I should say, it only shuts off power to one pole, which means it still has some power. So things like your clock and any smart devices that are attached to your stove continue to work, because there's nothing more annoying than having your stove have to be the clock reset every time there was a shut off. So we don't do that. We just allow it to run. And then what we also did is we developed a mobile app for it. So now you can remotely control the stove. If you're a caregiver, you get real-time alerts if there was an auto shut off, or you can set it for first time up in the morning when they walk through the kitchen, like your mom walks through the kitchen, it will send you an alert so you know somebody's up. So you don't have to call them every day and say, hey, are you up? Or, hey, I was just checking, because that tends to really annoy people when you're calling. So instead you can know, leave a little time for them to get their coffee and then call, and it goes much better. Or it also sends alerts for late night wandering. If you're concerned and your parent or loved one that you're caregiving for complains that they're always tired, but you ask them, they go, no, I'm sleeping great. And then it shows up, no, they were in the kitchen about 3 times between the hours of 1:30 and 4:30. So then you have real information that you can use. And now we've partnered that with Care Daily so that it has an AI feature to be able to trend and track activities so that you can see if there's a change, if there's more incidences of shutoffs, if there's more incidences of walking through the stove or kitchen, I'm sorry, late at night, then you know that's it. So that's some of the things. So the mobile app was a big plus for us. We also allow you remotely to control the stove, so you can either, oh, did I leave the stove on? You can make sure you didn't and check your phone, and it'll tell you. And if it is on, you just hit a button, it'll shut the stove off. You can also, if you're a caregiver, lock the stove out remotely from your phone. So you don't want, maybe mom had an accident making tea at 1:30 and got scalded because wasn't totally awake. You can lock out the stove for certain times, so you can set when it can be active and when you don't want it to be active. It's also good if you have young children. You can lock out the stove when you go out so they won't be messing with it and having an incident. But as I say, the original concept and why I was excited is it was to help families allow their loved ones to age in place safely, because the two biggest sources of problems are falls and kitchen or fires. And so we take one of those totally off the table. The other thing is that's why that's important is the according to the Federal Emergency Agency, FEMA, they've documented that says for people over the age of 65, you're 2.5 times more likely to be injured in a kitchen fire than those under that age. And so it becomes, there's just more going on. I also think that a lot of the greatest generation, they think they can put anything out. So they're going to stay in there and fight the fire instead of.
I've just lost Jon here.
With our new product in this June. So we'll start to ship, and we'll be on Amazon. We'll be on Crutchfield Electronics to start. And then we'll move on to Best Buy and some other retailers, but also be offered by smart home integrators that we're talking to right now, like ADT. So that's basically where we're at. I'm glad to answer any questions. Oh, I should also tell you, kitchen fires are not cheap. The average cost, according to the National Insurance Appraisal Organization, says that on average a kitchen fire is a $73,000 claim.
Wow. So Jon, I want to stop you here. I got a couple of questions for you. Sure. Let me pop it up here on the screen. So does it detect heat or fire, and the question is does it detect smoke?
Nope, because we're predicting and preventing. So it doesn't require excessive heat or smoke to do. There's other products in the marketplace, but they rely on a smoke alarm going off to shut off the stove. Yeah. Because we're doing predict and prevent, we're not looking at the stove creating a problem. What we're looking at is if the cook leaves the kitchen area. And so we're actively staying with that, and it shuts off the stove under 5 minutes. If someone leaves the kitchen area, it starts immediately a countdown, and it shuts off until you come back. So we don't rely on heat.
Yep. So let me ask a couple more questions. So
sure.
One of the things that occurs to me is that I know sometimes I'm not the cook in my house. Both my daughter and my wife are great cooks, and they're in the same house. So they mostly keep me out of the kitchen except to wash dishes, which I'm actually quite good at. So it's better for everybody that way, because you probably wouldn't want to eat my cooking. But one of the things I do know is sometimes they'll put a big pot of pasta on and they'll
Hmm.
go sit in their chair for a while. So I can see them right now that they put a big pot of pasta. It's got a lot of water in. They get it boiling. They drop the pasta in, or they're waiting for it. Probably more likely they're waiting for it to boil, and it's a big pot, so it takes a while. And then they come back in the kitchen and find this thing's all shut off and their water's not boiling. How do you deal with that?
We have, so that's a great question, and it's one that we addressed really early on, which is we have an extended cooking timer, Steve, that you can just hit the little timer button. Matter of fact, if you can pull up the other rendering, can you switch to the picture of the device?
This right
Thank you.
here? Yeah.
Yep, thank you. So when the stove is on, that little stove sign on the far right will be
Yeah.
red. And it also will show auto protect, which is green on the left. But if you desire to cook something like simmer soup stock or make chili where you know it's going to be on a low heat for a while, or if you just I want to boil some water and I got to leave the room for a while, but you know it's a lot of water, you hit that little button that says timer, and under where the word iGuard is, up pops a time, like it looks like a digital clock,
Mhm.
and you can add increments of time for what you want. So if you're simmering soup stock, it may be that you want an hour because it's just simmer and you've got a full pot. If you're making chili, maybe a half an hour, and then you're going to check it, so you can set it for a half an hour. You hit that timer button again, and it won't shut off the stove until that particular cooking event is finished. Once that's done, it goes back to auto protect. But for that period of time, just like what you asked for, it'll put the device to sleep for that period of time.
Got it. Okay, great. That's really good. So, my audience is mostly senior living owners and
Mhm.
operators, and typically in an assisted living or memory care, you don't have cooking, but
Yep.
most independent living, and there's more and more of that. There's a lot of interest in this. It could be super, super important. One of the things I'm wondering is if I'm an operator and I decide I want to put this in all my units to do that, can I make it so that the reporting comes to me without having to go to individual
Yes.
apps?
Yeah, no, Steve, we have a master dashboard. So for a multi-unit MD operator, whether it's 55 plus housing or independent living portion of a CCRC, we have it so that there's one dashboard that shows each of the locations for the product. So you control it from there. You see everybody. It's also a big help because you can you can have it send alerts that if somebody's going through their kitchen, so you know who's up and who's not, and then you can prioritize who you're going to check on first with that type of
Mhm.
technology. So, but it's all in one centralized dashboard for multifamily operators.
Oh, terrific. So, talk to me a little bit about the business model. Is it a monthly? Actually, before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit more about how it actually works. So,
Sure.
I assume let's start with electric stoves first.
Hmm. Electric stoves, it's real easy. We have a power box, which you unplug your stove and then you plug our unit in, and it's a small box that just fits in under your stove. And we've made sure that it'll fit under all stoves. So it's not some huge box. It's small and it's pretty flat, but it plugs into the wall to the power source. And then you plug your stove into that. And then you run a small cable that runs up to that monitor that I just showed, which is half, by the way, for reference, it's half the size of a i10, of a iPhone 10. So it's not big at all. And it pretty much disappears for people. And it just mounts on either side of a stove under a cabinet. And we provide shims so that you make sure it's not blocked by any soffit overhang. But
Mhm.
anyway, it sits up there. It's super easy. I would say 90% of our clients for the iGuard stove, which was the same, just a bigger box, a
Right.
monitor, not as sleek. It was a DIY. They did it do it yourself. And it's just a matter, you want to turn off power to the stove, plug in. It's also really easy. Stoves before 1996 had 3-wire or 3-prong plug-ins, and stoves after that period went to 4-prong plug-ins. And the easy way to tell without having to pull, undo your stove to see how many prongs it has is the stoves with 3 prongs have a gray cord. So when you pull your stove out to see which model you need, if it's a gray cord, you need a 3-prong. If you pull the stove out and look and it's a heavier black power cord going to the wall, that requires a 4-prong. So it's a real easy way for you just to figure out. But it just plugs in. The reason we use this very small cable up is 2 reasons. The first is we don't need batteries, so it's never going to run out. If the stove has power, the iGuard monitoring system has power. The other reason is not in the case of seniors aging in place, but we also sell a lot of these into student housing authorities, and those guys always want to mess with it. So sometimes they say, oh, if I undo this Wi-Fi cable, it'll shut it off and I won't be bugged. And what that does is it shuts down the stove. But that's not for the audience we're talking about today. It's just a feature we did.
Yeah.
So that's it. And it's super easy.
And then what about gas stoves?
Gas stoves, we have a gas model that's coming out in the fall that uses a gas solenoid. It has and for that, we not only strongly recommend, I would lie in front of a train that you should have a professional pipe fitter or a plumber install that for you, because you don't want to have any gas leak. And another reason you don't want any gas leak is because the device has 2 gas leak sensors, one up where the monitor is, and then one on the floor where the gas regulator solenoid is. And if it senses leaking gas, it shuts the stove off completely until you've remedied the situation. Nice thing is, for multifamily properties that have that, maybe independent living facilities, you'll know immediately which room has the gas leak. So you don't have to go checking down the hall to see who's got the gas leak. So it's really simple, no different. It's just you're using for that. It's a solenoid device that you plug into, and that's it.
Cool. That sounds terrific. I love the simplicity of it. I think too often we see technology that is super complex, and it can solve a real problem, but it becomes so complex that it's almost impossible. Talk to me a little bit about cost and availability, how people find it, that kind of thing.
Well, you can it'll be up on Amazon in June, and on Crutchfield Electronics in June. And as I say, more places. You can just Google iGuard and it will show you what retailers as we start supplying them. The price is $4.99 for the product, and that includes a free year of the monitoring service. For multifamily operators, the monitoring service is different because it's a commercial dashboard, and that's based on the number of things. But the retail right now is $4.99, which I have to say is sort of a disappointment to me, because I was notified just 2 weeks ago that for importing it, I've got a 35% tariff until I move it stateside for manufacturing. So that was a surprise. I know that was a surprise, but it's still, I think, a great value. If you can have something without the use of cameras, be able to monitor a loved one's home and know that they're okay and not going to have a fire. When you think about that's it. That's less than the cost of somebody visiting your loved one for a week, and so from that standpoint, it's a great deal.
So again, most of my audience are senior living operators, and so they're likely, if they were going to buy this, they'd buy it in bulk. I assume they wouldn't do that through Amazon.
No. They come to us directly. We have a commercial tab on our website, and they just go there and click on, and what happens is we contact them to get more information on whether it's gas they need, electric, how many units they're talking about, and then we have volume pricing for B2B customers.
Okay, terrific. And sort of talk to me, let's say I look at this and I want to do this in my community. What's sort of the time lag to order and get access to them?
Well, we've got our first that we wanted to make sure that everything was up to scratch with the manufacturing. So we've got 1,000 coming in in June, and then we've got like 5,000 behind that coming through by September. So there's no issue, and we've just streaming. The only difference we're going to make is the first units were made in China because our contract manufacturer thought they were the fastest learners.
Yep.
But we decided we wanted to keep it closer to home. And so we're moving manufacturing production to Mexico, which doesn't have the same tariffs and allows us quicker turnaround. We don't have to put anything on a ship or air freight it, which we're doing right now. So it just, all that saves money and allows us to be much more competitive when we're talking multi-units for commercial application.
Terrific. I love this so much. Anything else I should be asking you?
No, I think, Steve, you're really good and have insights, because I think the big things is it's not onerous. I will say the one other thing that I would point out is we made the new device so that people just forget about it. The best thing that we can hope for and how we move to this and why I was brought on because of designing the size and changing out the features was to make it where you just forget about it. Unless you're doing something like an extended cooking, it's just there, and it's the auto protect is on, and it just protects you without, needing a lot of heavy lifting or even noticing it from the user's side. And that's what you want, because for folks aging in place, they want to focus on what's fun, which is cooking, not on a bunch of dots or like your car now where you have to touch multiple screens to make anything happen.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, I'm sorry, you may have said and I missed it, but what's the monthly or annual fee for
an individual? For an individual, it's $29 a year for all the monitoring features, but we give the first year free. And then after that, it just goes on an auto renew.
Got it.
As long as you want that. And I would say it's well worth it because it, as I say, without needing cameras, you have real-time alerts to know that your loved one or your clients or your residents, as I should say, are safe.
Yeah. Well, when you said 29, I had this moment panic, and then you fixed it when you said a year rather than a month. So that's very reasonable.
No, it's a year. Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of arm wrestling with our tech people because they go, oh, this is worth a lot more. And I said, I just want it for people that, my motivation was really, unfortunately, when I was a child visiting my grandmother, a neighbor had a kitchen fire and she was seriously injured. So for me, it's personal, and I see how this can really make a difference.
Terrific. Well, Jon, this has been a great conversation. I love the product. I think it would have real value for independent living operators, 55 plus community, active living kinds of things. So I appreciate you spending some time with me talking about this. So it's been a great conversation.
Thank you. And we're at iGuardFire.com. So if people want more information, they can just go there. If they're a commercial user, they can just, contact us and tell us what they need in terms of units, and we'll put together pricing for them and work with them. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Steve. It's great seeing you. You always seem to be in cool places. Last time I saw you was Las Vegas, and now you're in Nashville. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's a good life. it's funny. I was having breakfast with a friend of mine who's out job hunting right now, and sort of talking to her about what kind of a job she wanted. And finally, she looked at me. She said, "I want your job." And and it made me really appreciate how much fun I get to have doing this. So again, Jon, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and we will be back Friday with another great leadership show.
Steve, have a great rest of the week. Thanks
Great.
so much.
Jon, why don't you hang on for just a minute after we go off the air?
Okay.